Hello, so this video is going to be a bit of a guessing game because it's about what I believe is called the Russian ShZPU helmet. Now, it's got a label in Russian, so I'll show you that because I know I have some Russian subscribers and people that actually speak Russian. So if I can actually angle the helmet so the camera can see the label. There we go. Right. That's probably, I'm afraid, as best I'm going to be able to get it with this camcorder due to the shape, but hopefully you can read some of that. So I took a photo of that label, ran it through the Google Translate app, and then any information I got out of it, like the ShZPU, I then put onto Google, and then I actually found a page that I could translate with Google Translate that was a product information page about the helmet. So I'm not going to try and quote technical specifications from that page, because obviously putting it through Google Translate they could be totally incorrect, and that's even assuming that the page has got correct info on. But this is a fairly modern Russian Riot helmet. So apparently it meets GOS standards for whatever they are for Riot helmets. And it's actually quite competent looking at the page, because one of the things it mentions on there, which I've never seen mentioned about British Riot helmets, is basically that it offers sort of stab protection and like essentially what I assume would be spike protection, because they called it dagger protection. Or in the UK we'd call it like knife and spike. But I suppose if it says knife and dagger, then dagger is like the spike sort of rating. So it was saying however many joules it did, and again I don't want to try and remember what they are, or even they might be incorrect, so I don't really want to quote them. But the idea is that up into certain levels of force, knives can be stopped. At lower levels of force, like daggers or spikes, I guess, can be stopped by this helmet. And then it was saying about impacts. Now, the only annoying thing is I don't have the visor for this helmet. It was one that Beastoree sent me for free, and he said if I wanted to trash the helmet for a video to see how good it was, and I said, well, a brand new nice helmet in perfect condition, no thanks, I don't want to trash it, because, British Riot helmets you can only buy second hand and are already a bit beaten up. Now, there's one thing I really like about this helmet, and that is, if we look at the sizing guide inside, where it says large, 59 to 60, this actually fits me quite comfortably. Now, if the camera's going to focus on that, it's just obviously there on the side. There we go. So, the issue is with a lot of British Riot helmets, especially the Mark IIIs, is that although you can buy them in certain sizes, and it's not like the fault of sellers listing them in the wrong sizes, because the labels are literally right there on the right helmet say it, they seem to be incredibly, rough fittings. Because when I got my Mark III, I had to spend ages sanding down the foam inside, and unfortunately having to tear out and basically throw away a load of the, protection cover foam for that foam, to get it to fit me properly. And that's really irritating. So at least with this one, it says that size, and oh look, let's have a go, it fits me. See? So what I'm going to do now is, before I put the helmet on, talk about it a bit more, we'll look at some of the features. So of course I'm going to get dead skin in there as always. But, so obviously it resembles a motorcycle helmet a bit, because compact Riot helmets do resemble motorbike helmets. So you've got your kind of what looks like a combination of leather and different types of foam liner here, attached there. And then it seems to be glued at the front. And it's obviously similar on that side with that flap. Now, how I assume this works from feeling the top of the helmet, like there, is I assume you can sort of see it through the material actually. That's a bit like the British ones where that sort of pulls out like that, but yeah, it is. I can probably get this at an angle where the camera can see it. There we go. So, if I get it back to that angle, which is quite difficult when you've got a helmet the size, there we go, there you can see it there. So, yes, this is the same sort of impact foam that's a bit like high density polystyrene or something that's used in the British Riot helmets. The idea being that these are kind of comprised of a couple of layers. You have a very hard outer plastic shell, or whatever material they use in the shell. You then have the impact foam. Now what the job of the impact foam is it's basically that foam is meant to deform rather than your skull. So you've first got the hard layer there that something has to break through, or that will absorb a lot of the shock. You've then got like the foam that's meant to deform, and that's why with a lot of these helmets they say, if it's taken a certain impact you have to throw it away. Because the problem is obviously if it took an impact, you were alright wearing it, then used it again. If it took another impact in a similar area, the integrity of the helmets can be damaged, and then it's not going to work properly. So that's that, and then obviously you've got a removable with a zip neck protector there. So the visor would attach via 3 points there, it looks like, there, and there. I think that hole there is actually the ear protection one on each side rather than the visor mount. But it is a visor that can go up and down, so I don't know how the actual mounting system works. I assume a swivel bit mounts onto there. Yeah, because if you look, it looks like you can see, although this is like an unissued one, that's where they've probably fitted one to test it worked and then took it off again. So I assume those two bits have a swivel mount, there's another reinforcing bit there, so it probably pins on with 3 bits, and then obviously the helmet bracket goes on there. Now, from what I could see looking at pictures of these when they were being sold as new, if you had the visor with it, it's very similar to the British Mark III one, Mark III Guardian. So I'll get that helmet out in a moment and show you. One thing that's definitely better about this, most things are better, but again, until I've got one with a visor, I can't say how much I like the visor, is the chin strap has a foam pad in it there, and it's sort of a flexible plasticky rubber sort of thing there. Nice strap, but you'll notice that the belt system for it is like a seat belt. It's actually a very good quick release belt. So if I get this on, and as I said, this one actually fits me quite well, so that's that. I think I've already pre-adjusted this one, so get that there. And then if I find that bit for the plug, like the seatbelt bit, as much as I might be fumbling with it there we go, it's still better than the British systems where some of them have those like plastic buckles that can break quite easily. Yeah, that's fairly comfortable. And I said, unfortunately, I don't have the visor for this one. I think if Beastoree gets a load more of the visors, he's going to send me one, because I think he just forgot with this one, because he had them in a different box or something. But, yeah, so this is quite comfortable in that regard. There's a bit of movement there, but you always want a bit of movement with a Riot helmet. You don't want them really tight to your head, because then your neck takes a lot more of a shock. The idea of a lot of helmets like this, like with medieval combat helmets, is that you have a bit of space, but not loads. The idea being then, when you get an impact, the helmet moves a bit as well, before hitting your head. So there's, you know, again, another factor. You've got the hard outer shell, you've got the inner impact foam, you've got the sort of soft foam liner for comfort, and again, a bit of absorption. And then you've got a little bit of space where the helmet can, you know, move, losing some of its speed before it hits your head, rather than, you know, your head being so solidly into it that as soon as you get an impact, you know, it's going to brain you or whatever. So yeah, that's what the helmet looks like. So I think I said ShZPU, didn't I? But it will be in the title. And what I'll probably do is try and link to a page if I can find like a proper information page about it, even if you have to run it through Google Translate, just so you can see some more info. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is get the British Mark III Riot helmet, and we'll have a side-by-side comparison of them. Bear in mind, this is the Mark III. I've had to cut some of the liner out, so it won't look as good inside. It wasn't even in the first place, but because this foam is much nicer in this one. But, you know, it will give you an idea of kind of a comparison between various models of the Riot helmet. The thing is with Riot helmets, though, if you were really seriously going to use them, I think you'd probably have to buy a grade A one, or, you know, a completely unissued one like this. The reason I'm saying that is with, like I was saying before about the impacts damaging them, if you buy the surplus British ones, or whatever your country's domestic Riot ones are if they're sold, a lot of them when they're sold as surplus are literally sold as surplus because they've taken an impact where it's no longer, you know, integrally safe to the wearer to have it on in a situation where they'll be hit again. Of course, if you're using it for some sort of minor thing, mucking about like I do sparring, or just to give you more protection than nothing in a scenario where stuff might be hitting you in the face, they're certainly better than nothing for that. But if you really seriously thought you might need one for a head impact, you know, it's like you wouldn't buy a second-hand bicycle helmet or a motorcycle helmet, would you, that had a load of dents in. So anyway, let's get the British Mark III helmet and we'll do a side-by-side comparison. Okay, so here's the British Mark III. It's normally called the Guardian, this helmet. And it's generally a very good Riot helmet, but as said, it's got kind of a couple of annoying things. So, if we look at this one, it says size 2, and on the label it says 56 to 57 centimetres. I think it's in millimetres on there, but yeah, 560 to 570. So, this helmet is barely bigger than that, but again, this I had to sand so much off of. And even when I asked a couple of people before I did that to try it on, who have smaller heads than me, they found it too tight. So be aware if you buy the British ones that the sizing's a bit off. I'd say the foam on the neck bit, or like, you know, the neck protector bit, is better on the British one, but it's bulkier. The Russian one is thinner and obviously more flexible. Obviously, one of the points of these Riot helmets is you might want to take this stuff off anyway, because the issue with this, I found, is if you're wearing it with certain body armour, the collar of the body armour rides up the helmet, you know, or it will mess your body armour up. So what you want to do is take that off with certain things if you've got a neck protector on the body armour anyway, because it's not like having two layers of protection that work with each other. They kind of work against each other, where both are trying to shove one out the way. In terms of thickness of the helmet, let's take this off. If I had calipers or whatever they're called, I could do a really accurate one, but I'm sure a lot of people like my videos because it's kind of more pseudo-scientific. So let's have a look at the thickness of the two helmets. The only way of really doing this accurately is probably ridge for ridge. So if I put this helmet like this, and we look at them like that, if they're both in frame, the outer edge I think is slightly thicker on the British one, but not by much. That's kind of like, when they have those rubberized sort of edges like that on helmets, it's generally to stop the edge splintering, to reinforce the edges. So that's slightly thicker. I think in general, the British, I know this has the visor on, so it's going to throw me off on weight calculations, but the British one does seem heavier. I'd assume if you had both in perfect unused condition in a size that fit you, the British one would give you a bit more protection, but obviously, I don't know about the spike protection, everything like that, but I'm assuming the Russian one is kind of designed to be, you know, lightweight and practical, whereas you might not, because the thing is with the British Riot helmets, for example, the first gen of the British Riot helmet's normally called the Argus helmet, not Argos as in the shop, but Argus, A-R-G-U-S. That's a lot thinner than this one, so I think the Russian Riot helmet would kind of fit between the two in the different sizes. As far as I'm aware, the British Mark II helmet is literally very similar to the Mark III, just a different visor on it. So yeah, as I was saying, the chin thing is definitely much better on the Russian one. Because if you look at the chin thing in the British one, it's got that plastic kind of thing that can snap, and I've seen pictures of lots of second-hand Riot helmets where those are snapped. And the problem is, a lot of this is held in via Velcro in the British helmet, so you can see where those bits are coming off. Basically, a lot of it's held in via sticky tape and Velcro. So the issue is, if you're removing bits of the liner to put them back in, you're going to find they don't stick properly or they're out of place. But yeah, you can see the impact foam stuff properly there. As said, it's basically impact foam. Well, what you might be able to see there, if I get the angle right, you can just about see it there. See the yellow stuff? It's actually got a bit of a Kevlar lining in the inside of this helmet, but the helmet isn't Kevlar filled, so it's not a bullet resistant helmet. But I think the purpose of the Kevlar is probably just to stop spalling, as in if something hits the helmet and causes plastic shrapnel to come through, you know, that stops spalling. The Russian screws on this one are covered with plugs. The British one has the screws stick out, so they're going to oxidise a bit more on the British one, so that's probably a plus for the Russian one. As said, I can't compare the visors on them, because I don't have the visor for the Russian helmet to compare them. But the Russian one is meant to be fog-proof, and it says, you know, if it takes an impact up to a certain thing, the visor will still work functionally. If it takes a bigger impact, it will basically be where the visor might be stuck down or stuck open. With the British ones, they don't make a lot of those specs public. In terms of ear vents, I think the Russian one wins here, because with the ear vents on these helmets, if you can see that in frame properly, they're not the easiest things to show. The Russian one, which is obviously in this hand, the vents are pretty small there. The British ones, if I put them side by side, let's have a look. Yeah, the British ones are ever so slightly bigger, and they're flush flat, so personally I don't think that grille looks very strong. Because the problem I'd have with the ear holes in Riot helmets, and I understand why they have them there, so it's so you actually have some situational awareness and can hear, is if it's made of something thin like that, like we were saying about the spike protection thing, I imagine somebody could literally get a small knife or spike and just go through that like that, and you know, into your ear. Which in a Riot scenario wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, as I said, the problem with the liner for the British one is it's mostly foam. I can't remember if the neck protector actually pulls out of this one. Oh yeah, that's another issue. The neck protector on the British one, if I can show you this, again, uses that kind of awful gluing on, there you go, where, you know, if your glue comes off, you can't stick the neck protector back in, because the neck protector, I believe, on this one, is meant to be kind of held on via Velcro. But, actually, no, saying that, no, you can't remove the thing easily on a Mark III. You could on the Mark Is, they were Velcro. If you look at the Mark III, if I get the angle right, can you see it on that side? Yeah, there we go. The actual neck strap protector is held into the Riot helmet via screws. So, as much as that will probably give it a bit more integrity to stop it coming off by accident, if you want to remove it, you can't quickly unzip it like the Russian one or unvelcro it like the older British helmets. So yeah, that is, I'd say, a negative on that, because overall you probably want one that's, you know, you can take off easier. As I said, the problem with the construction of these British helmets, if I do that, you can really see it. Lots of the inside is just kind of cheaply glued in. And I don't think these are bad helmets, the Mark IIIs. I think they're very good for what they are. It's just the issue is, you know, obviously, there's a lot of things where the quality control on them could be a bit better. And again, you can't always find them in really good surplus condition. You know, whereas if you look at this Russian one, because I'm assuming, you know, it's quite easy to buy these pretty much, you know, either from the manufacturers, or unissued, or as very recent surplus. Other than the bits of dirt I've got in there, that was completely clean when I got it. It was all wrapped up in like a polythene bag and everything. But yeah, so according to this is only 2 millimeters, or sorry, 2 centimeters, 2 or 3 centimeters bigger inside than the British one was. But the British one was too small for me. So if you are going to get a Mark III Guardian, I know this isn't a video about the Mark III Guardian, it's just for comparison, you're probably going to want to make sure you buy it in a much bigger size than you think you need. Because if it's too big for you, you can at least put some more foam in it. If it's too small, you're going to have to keep sanding away the inside and probably ruining bits of the liner, which would lower the protection. But yeah, overall, I really like this Russian one. Hopefully I'll be able to get a visor for it, because if I can, this would definitely be a helmet I'd use for, you know, actually if I needed a Riot helmet. And the thing I like is that because they've actually made, you know, specifications of what these can and can't stop available. Whereas the problem with a lot of, you know, brands is they don't want to say. And I could understand it from the aspect you don't want to tell a criminal how to kill a police officer wearing a Riot helmet. But if you're buying protective gear, you want to maybe know what's the best, you know, or what's the best in a certain price range. Because if, for example, you know with this one, you know, if you read a technical specification page for it, you know it can stop a knife travelling at however many joules or whatever. That's a good thing to know. If with like the British Riot helmets they don't tell you that, that's not so great, is it? Because you don't know actually how well they'll hold up unless you have one for testing. But then if you have one for testing, you're going to need to buy another one, because once you've tested it, it's not going to be good enough to use anymore. Yeah, just another thing to show you is obviously this wasn't something I put in it. There's a big gouge there. I think there's an even bigger one. Let me put the visor down. Yeah, there it is. So there's a big gouge on this British helmet where I've got it, and you can see the impact foam there. I'm not sure if it's meant to have that dent in it there either. See that dent? I don't think that's meant to be there. So I think, again, that's where the integrity of the helmet's been damaged there. I'm assuming what happened is somebody, either in training or when it was actually used as a Riot helmet, hit the person wearing it there, like, a couple of times. And that, or, like, you know, bricks or something were flying. And that's, yeah. So that's a problem with my Mark III, because when I've looked at others of these, I've never seen that on there. Yeah, it's like a little trench on there. So, yeah. I'd recommend the Russian one over it, but obviously as I said I can't comment too much on the visor other than the specs I saw on that page. From what I can see, the visor on it though, when it's mounted, looks very, very similar to the Mark III's visor. Now, whether or not I could actually take the visor off of this Mark III and fit it to this one, I don't know. If I could get all the swivel system off and everything, because the visor on this is in pretty good condition. Also, the Russian one is specified as having a visor that's actually really good at having anti-fogging properties. Other Riot helmets have mentioned that, but the other two I have fog up really quickly. So I don't know if it's just when they're new they're coated with something on the visor that prevents fogging, or it, you know, might just be that some of them make tall claims, but as I don't have a visor I can't test that. So anyway, hope you found this video interesting. If you want to buy one of these, Beastore's got them for sale, and obviously he sent me this one but he forgot to send the visor. Obviously if you buy it from him then you'd be getting the visor, because otherwise, you know, you'd have to complain, but you know, obviously if you send it to me for free, you know, it's just if he gets round to sending me the visor, great. As I said, you can still use it like this as just an impact protection helmet, but there's obviously nothing covering the face. So yeah, in conclusion, I think this is pretty good. I mean, as I said, it's not probably as heavy and as durable as the Mark III in all, if you had a proper pristine good condition Mark III that fit you absolutely perfect and everything, from what I can tell. But this seems like a very practical in-between helmet, as in, you know, it's a comfortable, lightweight thing. It's got a very easily removable and reattachable neck, you know, protector on this one, just with a zip. So if you want the neck protector off, you don't have to keep pulling at Velcro or, you know, unscrewing bits of the helmet to take it off. And yeah, overall seems very good. And as I said, one of the things I really like on this one, if I get the right hand on it, is the strap system, because it's like a seatbelt kind of buckle, with a nice sort of chin bit with a bit of foam in it. rather than being a plastic buckle that's going to break as soon as the helmet gets an impact and, you know, the buckle's put under stress. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, if you want one of these, Beastoree have them for sale. I'll put a link down below to his eBay page. If you're elsewhere in the world, or you know, you might be able to find these elsewhere. And for any of my Russian viewers, if you have any more info on these helmets, please share it, or if there's anything I get wrong, please tell me. I'll probably pin those comments, you know, as long as you can back it up with evidence of what you're saying. But yeah, overall I'm pretty impressed with this, because as I said, it's definitely more durable than the British Mark 1 Riot helmets, like the Argus type one. And it's probably not as durable as the Mark 3, but the actual quality construction of it seems a lot better than the Mark 3. So it's certainly a lot more comfortable, and as I said, the foam isn't like stuff that's just going to fall out. Because the problem with the British Riot helmets, and I will try and wrap the video up now, is a lot of it is just kind of glued in or kind of stuck in, where it means that, you know, because it's not like a properly integrated liner system, see as this, it's kind of all one unit, which probably has pros and cons. Actually, let me just quickly check. Do the ear bits, are they a separate bit? Yeah, these are, I think, slightly separate there. But the point is that, you know, most of this liner is all attached to the same bit, which is quite nice. It's like a good flush-built liner. With the British ones, the problem is that you see that basically they've almost glued a couple of different things together to make the liner, which means it's kind of more like impact foam with some you know, like padded foam bits stuck to it, rather than actually being a dedicated liner for the helmet. So yeah, hopefully that's summed it up for you. But yeah, the Russian Riot helmets, I reckon, are pretty damn good for what they are, and I definitely really want a visor for one.